In August of 1587, John White stepped ashore on an island in present-day North Carolina and prepared to build a new life. With 115 colonists from England, they intended to form the first permanent English settlement in North America. But when explorer John White returned 3 years later, hoping to help his friends grow their fledgling colony, he instead stumbled upon a ghost town. It was then that White came across a single clue that set off a trail of speculation that continues to this day. Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling historical mysteries, and you won't want to miss the opportunity to leave your own theory in the comments. Now let's solve the mystery of the missing colonists. 1587, the year of the Star Chamber. When John White arrived in North America with his group of English settlers, they did so under the charter of a group known as the Virginia Company of London. This company was one of several that had been granted permission to establish settlements in North America by Queen Elizabeth I. This particular charter had been granted by Elizabeth I, who likely hoped that establishing colonies in North America would result in wealth and power for England. For White and his crew, however, things were much less glamorous. As they made landfall on Roanoke Island, they also ran aground and nearly starved. After rationing their food stores for months, the crew was forced to subsist on the meager offerings of the land, while White and others ventured into the interior to seek out a more hospitable area. Fortunately, they found the CROATOAN tribe, who proved willing to trade with the hungry settlers. White returned to England in 1588 to replenish their supply of food, as well as to petition the crown for further assistance. But soon after, England's war with Spain broke out. This meant that White's ship was needed to transport troops instead of supplies. For the next 2 years, White lobbied for his colony's cause and fought for funding. During this time, he even traveled to Germany and France to gather potential support for his colony. Finally, in 1590, he was able to secure a passage back to North America and to his colony. However, he had no way of knowing that in the intervening years, every single settler would vanish without a trace. What happened on Roanoke Island? Upon his return, White noticed that the fort that had been constructed by the English settlers had been completely dismantled. The buildings where the colonists had lived had been stripped and burned. Even the chimneys lay in ruins. Everywhere he looked, White saw signs that the inhabitants had fled in haste. Pots and pans were left in the middle of the camp, and livestock roamed freely through the settlement. While searching for clues about his missing friends, White came across a single word carved into a wooden post. It read CROATOAN. At first, White searched the island thoroughly to find any sign of a battle or an attack. But he found nothing. No bones or personal effects turned up, and no traces of disease could be found. There was no evidence that any crime had been committed or that violence had played any part in the disappearance of the colonists. Sometime after this, White headed to the nearby CROATOAN Island to see if the settlers had moved there. But the native inhabitants there denied that they had seen any newcomers. White then searched the coastline for miles, hoping to find a path or road that the settlers may have used to leave the island. All he found was a deep gorge that had been created by a storm. To this day, nobody knows what became of the colonists, but historians have put forward several theories. While most agree that the colonists didn't perish on Roanoke Island, nobody can say for certain what happened to them. Some believe that the entire group simply picked up and moved to CROATOAN Island, where they may have lived among the Native Americans. However, others argue that the carving CROATOAN may have been meant to mislead explorers. There's reason to believe that the English settlers were well liked by the native population. Not only did they trade with the CROATOAN tribe, but they also intermarried with them. When exploring the coast, White actually found the fort that the colonists had built on the mainland and sailed to its location. He spoke with a local Native American chieftain, who told him that he had indeed seen White's colony, but that all the inhabitants had gone down to the sea to fish. According to the chief, they never returned. White stayed on Roanoke Island for 9 days, sending out search parties to look for his friends and loved ones, but he never found them. One interesting piece of evidence was brought to light in the early 1900s. However, when excavations uncovered some shards of English pottery at an ancient Native American village, while this discovery couldn't prove that the settlers had joined the CROATOAN tribe, it certainly lent credence to the idea. An alternative theory is that the settlers disappeared due to bad weather or disease. In the 16th century, the Atlantic Ocean was a wild and unpredictable place. and sailing was a risky endeavor. Storms could easily befall the ships carrying settlers and supplies, leaving the colonists stranded on the rocky shores of North Carolina. Disease also ran rampant during this time period and could wipe out entire communities in just weeks. There's some evidence that the English settlers may have perished from sickness, although there are no records indicating which ailment may have taken them out. Other historians suggest that the settlers may have been victims of conflict with other European powers. The Spanish were known to be aggressive toward English settlements during this time, and would have posed a great threat to the unprotected colonists. Additionally, the French and Dutch were also competing for territory in North America. Perhaps a group of explorers from one of these countries may have attacked the colony and carried the settlers away, and some historians have pointed to even more unusual theories. Could the settlers have been abducted by sea monsters? While there's no evidence to support this claim, author David Stick, whose works often revolve around mysterious maritime tales, speculated that a giant squid could have washed ashore and dragged the settlers into the sea. Another outlandish explanation was proposed by author Linda Afraden, who suggested that aliens may have taken the colonists. However, the most popular theory suggests that the settlers were not killed or taken captive, but instead willingly integrated themselves into the Native American culture. Historian Timothy B.W. Hinweis believes that the settlers likely followed a group of natives inland, perhaps to seek refuge or supplies. According to Noda, this would explain why there was no sign of a struggle or battle. Additionally, the name CROATOAN may have been meant to direct explorers to the Albemarle Sound, where a large group of settlers could have been living. Archaeological evidence lends credence to this theory as well. Several tools that were consistent with those used by the English settlers have turned up at Native American sites along the Sound. The theory that the colonists simply walked away from their settlement seems to be supported by the fact that many settlers' personal belongings were left behind. Things like shoes, beds, and chairs were simply abandoned, suggesting that the colonists did not intend to return for them. Did the colonists blend into the Native American population? To this day, the truth of what happened to the Roanoke settlers remains unknown. The only pieces of evidence pointing to foul play are the fact that the entire settlement was abandoned, and the word CROATOAN was carved into a wooden post. Without written records or physical evidence, it's impossible to say for sure what became of them. Perhaps the settlers did integrate themselves into the Native American society. Maybe they were killed and eaten by a rival tribe. It's possible that they were lost to disease or famine, or maybe they were whisked away by a freak storm or sea monster. Ultimately, we may never know the truth. But why does the story of the Lost Colony matter? The fate of the Lost Colony is important because it represents a pivotal moment in American history. These brave men, women, and children were some of the first English speakers to settle in North America. Their story is a reminder of the hardships faced by early settlers and the dangers they encountered as they sought to build a new life in an unfamiliar land. By studying the history of the Lost Colony, we can gain a better understanding of the challenges and triumphs of those who came before us. Their story also highlights the importance of preserving our history. By learning from the past, we can better appreciate the sacrifices made by those who helped shape our nation. Additionally, the mystery surrounding the Lost Colony serves as a reminder of the unknown aspects of our history. Despite the efforts of historians and researchers, some questions may never be answered, and some mysteries may never be solved. So what do you think happened to the Lost Colony? Do you believe they simply disappeared or were lost to a natural disaster, disease, or something more sinister? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss an exciting episode. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you next time.